Welcome to the TrailBlazers Impact podcast, a groundbreaking new podcast that explores the transformative journeys of contemporary female history makers, from the civil rights era in the 1960s to overcoming LGBTQ discrimination, gender bias, and racial discrimination in today's world. I'm Nan McKay, and Dee Dee Strum and I interview women and a few men to bring you the aspirational stories of fearless women entrepreneurs, authors, attorneys, executives, community leaders, and mothers who have blazed a trail for others to follow. Get your dose of can-do empowerment today. TrailBlazers Impact podcast is featured in the top 20 Trailblazers Trendsetters podcast by FeedSpot and is one of the top 28 podcasts for women in their 20s by Pretty Progressive. Visit our website, trailblazersimpact.com, and listen to all 3 of our podcasts. Subscribe using the link on our website to receive our newsletter with featured podcasts. Love what you hear? Then please share our episodes on your social media sites and shop for all your Amazon needs through the link on our website, trailblazersimpact.com, to help support the podcasts. I would like to introduce you today to Jamie Amelio. I anticipated an interview with an author and an interesting person, and then I read her book and was blown away. The title of her book is Staying Bothered, and I urge every one of you to read it. But it goes much farther than that. Jamie and her life story provide insight to all of us and advice that will resonate with everyone in dealing with the challenges and the obstacles that inevitably occur. My biggest takeaway is go deep, not wide. But there are many more takeaways. And each one will be individual to you, such as let go of the failure, find anything that is good, take it and own it because you control it. Now, because she deals with 2 topics in her book, we will have 2 podcasts with her, and this is the first one. It was a trip to Cambodia that catapulted her into action, expecting to be wowed by the temples of Angkor Wat. I hope I'm saying that right. Instead, she was captivated by a little girl who asked her for $1, saying she needed it to pay for school. Jamie did something unusual. She asked the little girl to show her the school. She discovered a crowded, dirty building packed with students, eagerly awaiting a teacher who would never arrive. Many educators had been murdered during the Cambodian genocide, and teachers had no idea how to teach. Within a few months, she established Caring for Cambodia, a nonprofit which now feeds and educates 6,700 students in 21 schools each year from preschool to high school. So let's meet this very unusual and dynamic woman, Jamie Amelio.
Hi, Nan. Thanks for having me.
Jamie, your book's title is Staying Bothered. What does staying bothered mean to you?
Staying bothered means after you've committed to do something and all the hype is gone and the excitement wears away, you continue to do what you said you were going to do. It's not about being in traffic or the coffee that you didn't get. Staying bothered is about a feeling that helps you to continue doing what's right. It's hard. The easy part is being bothered because we have a lot to be bothered about in this world, no doubt. But actually making a difference, that's where staying bothered comes in.
So I hear you saying we can talk about things, we can think about things, but if we don't do something about those things, nothing really occurs.
You're absolutely right, because big change happens when people collectively stay bothered and do small things. I think that's what happens in the world is so often people don't want to make that next step because perhaps they don't have $1,000 to give or 40 hours a week to work. So they just wait for somebody else to do it. But the truth is, an hour of volunteering will make an enormous difference in someone's life. $10 to an organization could be the difference in whether or not a child eats that day or someone gets clean water. It really and truly is that simple. It is.
Let's talk about how you got to Cambodia. You started as a wife and mother, going to Cambodia because of your husband's job, and you kind of fell into a life changing experience. So, talk to me about what you learned along the way.
I like how you put, I kind of fell into that experience. You're right. There was no way out. When my husband moved us to Singapore, me and the kids, I had a list of places to go, and one of them was Cambodia. And I did go to Angkor Wat. That was the plan, was to vacation. And when this little girl tugged at me and asked me for that dollar, it was really in that moment that everything changed. As I was standing there with her, I could see the monks off in the distance with these bright orange robes. And I remember feeling overwhelmed for a minute, excited, scared, and that orange was just shining so bright that became kind of my guiding light through the process. And what I saw bothered me that day, and it never went away. So I got my friends on board and over for dinner that next night that I got home, and Caring for Cambodia was born, and I never stopped. It's not been easy, hence the staying bothered. It's easy to be bothered about poor kids that don't have an education when your kids have everything. That part's easy.
So let's really talk about this Cambodian experience. Take me through the whole journey.
Well, if you can imagine a mindset of going somewhere on vacation, coming out of the airport, seeing the neon lights like you just seen maybe in Hong Kong on your last vacation, and then all of a sudden you go out into the streets and the traffic is bicycles and motorbikes, not taxis and fast cars. So instantly it's a different feeling. It's a different vibe. So we get to the hotel and we prepare to go. I'm excited to meet our guide. He's so sweet, very kind, mild-mannered. And then after little Sri Lin asked me for that dollar, and I went to the school. Samity is his name, the tour guide, turned to me and said, there's a lot more about this country that you should know. And that's when I learned about the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot and what he had done to over 2.5 million Cambodians in the genocide of the late 70s. I felt guilty because I didn't really know about that. I'd heard about the killing fields, but I didn't think about it that much. And then I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I got my hands on every book I could and read as much history as humanly possible to learn about the Khmer Rouge and what happened to them. So then I even felt more compelled. Oh my gosh, this is a country that America actually had something to do with those bombings and putting that country in helping them to be in a bad place. So once I committed and I shared what I'd seen with my friends, it was about building those relationships and getting my friends to come with me to share and see the schools, one school at a time, and then building trust and relationships in the Cambodians. I'd say that was the most eye-opening part because they didn't know how to trust either. Why would they? That was an unintended consequence. Really, I had no idea how that was going to turn into wanting to help some kids go to school and be educated, but yet really the relationships you're building and the kindness that you're sharing are helping an entire country to trust and love again.
Tell me what you mean by killing fields. And when I say that, the experience that I've had podcasting with a genocide experience is Rwanda, and talking to the people on the Peace Through Business podcast that either they went through it or had relatives that went through it. And it sounds very much the same, that a dictator comes in and kills people who don't agree with him or her. Well, tell me what it is.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And unfortunately, genocide is the same in so many countries. What they put their own people through, or perhaps it's another tribe, but it's in your own place. Your community is where it happens. And in Cambodia, Pol Pot wanted a totalitarian society. He wanted everybody to be dumbed down. And I mentioned in the book how if you were a teacher or a lawyer or you wore glasses, you were educated, you were the ones to be killed first. And the killing fields is a place in Phnom Penh. It's called SL-21, and it's behind what the Khmer Rouge used as a torture center. It was a prison and torture center. And after they got these prisoners, the people from outside in the villages, and brought them in, and they would take pictures of them. They were strategic about where they put all these prisoners. And then they took them out to the killing fields and they killed them. And oftentimes with a bat or some sort of object, because they didn't want to waste the bullets. So when I started doing this and going back and forth to Cambodia, and I went to the killing fields, there were moments that I was standing in that place where I looked down and there were bones. And it's the most sobering feeling of how could anyone do this in our world? How can there be genocides like this? And how do we as human beings let that happen? We shouldn't. So that helped me to be even more committed. And I had these moments of being bothered and staying bothered and challenges, but there are a lot of butterflies that day, which was a strange thing that just gave me some feeling of hope to continue, even in a world that can be so ugly.
And maybe those things are not impossible to even happen here. You know, we should be aware and look at history and see what brought it on and what were the steps from here to there, because I think it's an awareness that everyone should be very concerned about.
I think you're right, Nan, and I think it's a discussion to be had and to continue to have. I think we don't have enough in our schools. I think we can definitely learn from the past. There's no doubt about it. And how long does it take really for a country to get over a genocide? We don't know. How on earth do you know? I'm 2 generations in now to helping those kids and our organization really planting the roots of what we hope will be change. And they're still healing from that. And that's 30 years later, 40 years. My gosh.
Well, the other question is, how long does it take to build up to the point where there is a genocide?
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. What are the signs? How did they not see them before?
And if you have somebody who wants power and who wants dictatorship and who is an autocrat and who is an egotist, those are the kinds of things that, you start putting one and one together, and you may very well get the precursor of 2.
Yeah, you're right. And this is when we have to look in the mirror and say, thank God we're Americans and we have freedom of speech and the right to vote, because I will tell you, in Cambodia, no one had any freedom to speak about any of it, ever. And it's still tough to talk about. So it's very interesting to watch them heal and grow and learn and move on and not make the same mistakes. Want their children to see a better life. It's a long road.
I bet it is. Let's talk about the schools. You built one school at a time. And when you walked into that first school, you saw children but no teacher. How did you get from that point to finding teachers, getting them up to speed, and then building a real school?
You know what, Nan? I never let that feeling go away, and I won't ever forget it. My heart sank when I saw the dirt floor and the kids piled up at each desk. Knowing that my kids had so much and the opportunity to go to school, and took that for granted, and talking with those children and those teachers, they want to go to school, which made me want to help even more. So we started with one school, and our superintendent, who was a tour guide, Savvy, who's my best friend and brother now, and we continued to build those relationships. It took me a while to actually, I'll say, get in with the teachers, because they thought I was just crazy white woman tourists that continue to come back. So I had to sit around and have lunch and hang out. And again, build those relationships and keep the promises. But as one trusted me, another one and another one did. And it was obvious. We never wanted anything from them. We really just wanted to see that country change. And once people came over and saw the progress of one school and teachers being trained and children being fed, the domino effect took place. I had to be careful, though, because you get into a place of wanting to do a million things. That's where we have to stay focused and go deep rather than wide, which made us want to do everything we were doing really well, not a lot of things okay.
And that's go deep, not wide.
Absolutely. People always ask me, why don't you build more schools? Why don't you go out to Phnom Penh instead of Siem Reap? And the answer is, I didn't do this to come in and build schools all over Cambodia. We wanted to build a model school that the entire country could work from. And that's exactly what we've done. The Minister of Education has deemed our schools the model schools. We use Cambodian curriculum. There's no coming in and just talking about our Western ways. We're partners in change with them. All Cambodian teachers, everything that their Ministry of Education wants to see happen in the country happens in our schools because we're committed and we don't give up.
So how did you teach the teachers?
I quickly learned that I needed to surround myself with people that knew what they were doing. I am not a teacher. And it's funny because in growing up, my dad was a principal of a school, and I never would have thought full circle it comes to me being in education. But I was fortunate enough to be able to talk to teachers about what I was seeing and ask questions. And do you know, I don't even think I asked them to get involved. I think it was more of, how can I help? When can I go? So once we realized we had these teachers that wanted to go over there and help train those teachers, then we were able to get just a power community of teachers together that still goes. Every quarter, they go and work with the teachers in Cambodia who go to other schools, other provinces, other places to share that training. And that's the idea. That's the focus, and that's the beauty of what sustainability looks like.
Tell me about the children.
They're so beautiful. It's amazing how a culture can have a kindness to them after what they had been through. I have never, and I've traveled all over the world, I have never seen children so polite and grateful in the most quiet way. It's just humbling regularly. And there's nothing more that I like showing up unannounced in Cambodia, going to the schools, and the kids are on the playground. They have their uniforms on. Some of them are eating lunch that they may not have been able to have that day because our schools all feed the kids 2 meals a day. And then they get to brush their teeth. And they brush their teeth with clean water that volunteers have donated, spent money on, and toothbrushes that, again, volunteers have sent to them. This generation will be the real future of Cambodia. They understand what education looks like, what support looks like, and health and hygiene right now, how important that is. Staying healthy. So important. They're amazing.
And then you came back to the United States.
Dun, da, da.
Just going from one world to another, wasn't it?
It really was. I felt like I was in an alternate reality. It was so different. And I didn't think it would be. I didn't think I would be one of those, oh, I can repatriate. I'm going home, for God's sake. I'm going home. But it wasn't like that at all. It was after 10 years of living in Singapore and seeing things that I would have never seen had I stayed put, and understanding diversity from a different place and not seeing discrimination. And then all of a sudden, people I was meeting, my stories weren't that exciting. Cambodia wasn't that exciting. So I kind of just held up on my own and became a little bit of a hermit and stayed focused on Cambodia and tried to get through that. And then one day I realized I've got to make some friends. I've got to get out. But it was really, really quite difficult. They give you a handbook when you go over to the country to learn about the country you're going to, but I couldn't find one to come back. Knowing that you'd be stressed out, anxious, depressed. Those things are tough.
And why did you go through those feelings?
I think part of it is when you're so used to something where people understand, people understood where Cambodia was. They understood what I was doing. That was my full-time job. My kids went to school, their friends, parents knew about caring for Cambodia. People in general wanted to help. Now, Americans are the most giving people in the world, But coming back here, working full time with that, I just didn't fit in. I didn't fit in anymore. So I had to find a way. I had to find a way to make friends from a different space. I'm not Jamie Amelio with Caring for Cambodia. I'm just Jamie Amelio.
So was it things like you'd start to talk about Cambodia and caring for Cambodia and people would change the subject?
Sometimes that would happen, and then sometimes they don't have to change the subject. My intuition would say, okay, that's enough. Let's change to maybe what's going on the football field or what happened at the PTA meeting. So it was just a little smaller pocket. Now, the new friends I did make, the few, were awesome. But boy, I had to go through a lot to get there. But you can feel when you come back to a community where some of the kids have gone to school together since kindergarten and you're coming in fifth grade, you're an odd man out. Oh, you lived in Singapore? Is that in China? And I didn't know where it was when Bill said, we're moving to Singapore. I thought the same thing. Asia, I never thought about going to Asia. And now all of a sudden, I feel like I was Cambodian in another lifetime. So who would have thought? You never know where life sends you.
I sometimes feel like that when I talk about my career with working with low income people. You see that look on their face and it kind of, their eyes glaze over and they just don't know what to say.
I think there's a guilt that many people feel when they can't do something, or perhaps that's where the stay and bother comes in again, is someone has wanted to do something, but they didn't know how. And then they're talking to someone that has made a bit of a difference. And that's a tough one. And you working with low-income kids in our own country, that's a way in for someone else to really say, wow, I could do something there. It's right here down the road.
Yeah. Now, you've gotten several tattoos. Tell me about that.
Oh, I have. And my husband is so conservative and supportive and sweet about it. At first, he said, what are you doing? I said, honey, this is a way for me to just be myself. I don't know, but I have an idea of things that really, really mean something to me. I just want to put them on my body. And most of them you don't even see. You would never know I had them. But I started with a butterfly because my girlfriend that went to Cambodia with me, she was my best friend in the world, passed away the year that we moved back, and we set butterflies off at her memorial service. Now, she and I stood in the middle of the killing fields together with butterflies surrounding us. So that was a very powerful, powerful moment. So I decided the day of her funeral, my oldest son, Austin, and her daughter and I went and got a butterfly tattoo. And then as time went on and things got really tough, I decided to get another one that was bamboo. Bamboo is really strong. Bamboo can weather anything. And there's something about when you get a tattoo and the needle goes into your skin and you can't move, and you've asked for this pain, and you have to kind of just get inside your head and get through it. Is it willpower? Yes, absolutely. Are you a little bit crazy to do it? Well, lots of people are crazy now with their tattoos. But it was a way for me to get away from everything. It was something people would never think I would do. And I liked it then. It was quiet, my own personal thing. And then I got Khmer, strength. It's in the Khmer language, Cambodian. It's a beautiful script. And my last one was a lotus flower, which the lotus flower has strength in adversity. It's beautiful and progression towards enlightenment. So you just have to keep going. Yes, it's easy for me to tell my kids not to get a tattoo until they're older, because I did wait till I was 39. So that part I get a little bit of a buy for.
Describe a huge disappointment for you. You talk about that in the book, and I'm thinking about Raithana's grandmother and Chakdari's mother and the deception you felt had occurred. And then talk about how you embrace forgiveness.
I thought I was a really, really forgiving person. I grew up in the Catholic faith, and that was one thing I always admired about that religion, is that God really does forgive us no matter what. And it's hard to do that, and it's better for you when you do forgive. But when you find out that the people closest to you, that you love and would go to the end of the earth for, really, and are your family, lie to you, and lie to you and lie to you. That's a tough one. And I had a family in Cambodia that we were supporting, and they lied and said they were not family, they were friends. And then a teacher that I loved and adored was asking me for money for her grandmother. They needed some help. And at the same time, that other family was asking me, and I didn't put two and two together. And it was all the same family. And the fact that they went to so much effort to hide the lie, which it wouldn't have mattered to me anyway, was really painful. And I, at first, was not going to forgive him. And then I realized I had to. Otherwise, I'm not walking my talk, and I'm not doing what I'm preaching. And no matter how horrible or how hard it is, because I felt like not only had this family and these people taken me for granted, for sure, and lied to me all those years, I felt like the country I love, which is Cambodia, was lying to me all this time. All that I kept, and I had that moment of, oh my God, all we've done, how can they do that? But you know what? Again, I'm better off today because of that struggle. It was hard and it hurt, and forgiving is the answer. No matter how hard it is, forgiveness is the answer. So I'm okay with them all. And I had to go back and talk to them and get it all out and say, I forgive you. So I forgave an entire country, and that's okay. That's okay.
Do you think that that's something that maybe we could pass on to other people? Who most people have something that they hold, whether it's a grudge that they're holding against someone or a situation that they feel they can't forgive. And tell us a little bit just about the feeling that you feel after you've been through that and you have made up your mind to forgive.
It's a feeling of being really light and calm, because I think there's so much energy we give to being angry, upset, and holding those grudges. When you decide to let that go and realize that people are human, no one is perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. How righteous are you if you can't forgive someone? Now, of course, there are things that are unforgivable in the world. This was very tough for me. And when I finally decided that, I realized, you know what? I'm no better than they are. We all make mistakes. We've all lied before. They just were caught up so deep, I don't think they knew how to get out of it. And I had to go back to what that country had been through. I have to forgive them. I have to move on. And I felt so much better. I really, really felt like, okay, this is another little ounce of wisdom that I get to own as I get older. I don't know that I would have done that when I was 30. I don't know. But I know that was the right decision. And anyone that I talk to about that situation, in the same breath, I will say it was really hard, but it's the most important thing I could have done. And is definitely in one of the top 5 most important things I've ever done in my lifetime, is to forgive them.
Well, let's wrap up this podcast by telling people, so just pick a couple of the achievements in the Caring for Cambodia that you feel are important, very important to you and to the country.
One of the most beautiful things to watch over the last 17 years is a teacher walk in her classroom, have school supplies, and be committed to those children right in front of them because they want to make a difference in their world. Teachers did not do that when we first started. And now we've got over 200 teachers that have support, and they go into their classrooms and they talk to the parents along with the students. That to me is one of the most incredible things that I've been able to see, because some of those teachers went to our schools when they were young. So they've graduated and even come back and help educate the kids. And to watch a little boy or girl actually go and wash their hands and tell other little ones, hey, wash your hands, come over here, wash your hands, when they're on the playground or before they walk into the classroom, is awesome. And I would have to say the number one thing is watching a community and a school come together where all of a sudden you can't see the line of demarcation, which is what we need in our schools, not only in Cambodia, but all over the world. The community cares about that school, its people, their kids, and the school wants to give back to the community just as much. And that's about growth and what a new country and the face of education looks like in Cambodia. It's incredible. I could go on, so be careful. We have lots of awesome programs: gender equity, the health and dental, career prep, really great ones.
Well, one of the things we certainly should urge people to do is go on our site, which is TrailBlazerSimpact.com, go to the shop page and buy the book, Staying Bothered. Jamie, is there a way people also can donate to Caring for Cambodia?
Absolutely. It costs $180 a year to send one child to school. If you go to caringforcambodia.org and you want to possibly volunteer or you feel like you can give, we'll take that as well. But go check out our website. There's some wonderful opportunities for you or your children to get involved.
So to volunteer, would you have to go to Cambodia?
No, absolutely not. No, this is the wonderful world of technology. They do have Skype and Zoom and all those things that we can help from afar with.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And I personally just am in awe of the wonderful thing that you have done there. And you should be very proud because it can be sustainable and it can go on and on.
Thank you, Nan.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you're inspired to tell everyone about our podcasts. Support our podcast by subscribing and shopping on our website, TrailBlazersImpact.com. And remember, you must learn a new way to think before you can master a new way to be.